Very warm greetings to all of you, and I welcome you to Polynomics Podcast on the Budget 2021. For our first speaker in this series, we have Dr. Mansi Phadke. Dr. Phadke is a guest lecturer at IBM Pune as well as a permanent faculty at GIP, that is Gokhale Institute of Political Science and Economics. Dr. Phadke has been a continuous consultant for the government of India as well as government of Maharashtra, and has consulted both the state and central government on various issues related to economics, budget, and their public policies as well. It is a proud moment for us, all of us at Polynomics, and I am Rachi, to have such a distinguished speaker amongst us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Siddhant. Hello, everybody. A big hi yet again to the faculty members here. It's great seeing you guys here today evening, and we're going to be talking about budget for FY22, that is for 21-22. Yeah. So when we were discussing about how to create the layout for the event, one of the suggestions that came across was that I could have something of a free talk for maybe about 25 to 30 minutes, and in which I would like to run you guys through how the budget is created, what happens at the back end, what are these revenue expenses, the capital expenses, right? What really happens when the finance minister puts certain amount of provisions on these different expenses? What are the implications of the budget? Once we see that, then we are really ready to talk about the nuts and bolts of the system, whatever questions that you have, For example, what happens when a bad bank gets created? What happens when disinvestment happens? How is that different from privatization and so on and so forth, right? So, वो तो हम खैर करेंगे ही and कर ही सकते हैं. But to begin with, let me put you through the brass tacks of the budget, right? That means how is a budget created? In order to do that, I'm going to take you guys across. Let me just present a whiteboard and do a little bit of scribbling, right? As we go through. Just give me a second, guys. All right. So, people, when a budget is created, basically what the finance minister is doing is that she is taking the permission of the parliament to spend X amount of money. I mean, that permission is taken at one go. Else what will happen is, हर एक खर्चा पानी का हिसाब हमें constantly लेना पड़ेगा. That, for example, I want to spend 1,80,000 on building road. May I spend this? And then there'll be a debate and discussion on it. फिर हाँ ना ये वो वगैरह. And then you'll get permission to spend maybe 1.5 lakh crores on roads, right? Now, which is an inefficient thing to do because there are so many departments of government and there are so many items on which the government wishes to spend. So what the government does is creates a plan. Yeah, and that is the first thing that you have to understand about a budget. That budget ek plan hota hai. There is really nothing which is very concrete here. This is a plan which is being presented by the by the finance minister as she goes into the new year FY22, that is 2021-22, right? So as she moves into this year, she is going to tell you where is a rupee going to come to her from, right? So from where will the treasury earn money and on what does she plan to spend this money? So the first notion that I would like to clarify at the outset is that budget बस एक proposal होता है जिस पर debate and discussion होता है budget session में. After the budget is presented, then the parliament really gets together and starts debating the clauses or starts debating whether, I mean, for example, suppose the finance minister says that we have to put X amount of money on health. Then there might be representatives who believe that that money is not enough and more money needs to be put on health. In which case, some money from maybe defense expense or road expense, will have to be allocated towards health expenditure because end of the day, it's a zero sum, please understand that, right? So what the finance minister is presenting is a plan of how is she going to earn, a rupee, and on what is she really going to be spending that rupee, right? Isko budget kaha jata hai at the baseline, right? Now, when a budget gets created, and it's important for you guys to realize this, that any budget globally is always presented on two accounts, okay? One is called as the revenue account. Yeah. and the other is called as the capital account. Okay. Now, so please do not confuse this revenue with revenue expense wala revenue. It's more of a current year account. It's more of an operations account wherein we are going to put in current year's revenues and current year's expenditures, right? So any transaction, right, which is a current year transaction, I'll soon explain what I mean by that, is going to be recorded under the revenue account. In contrast, if there is any transaction which creates for the country an asset or a liability or liquidates for the country correspondingly an asset or a liability, then that transaction is going to be recorded on the capital account, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, split these accounts further into earnings and expenses. Right? And similarly, the capital account will also be split into earnings and expenses. Okay? Now, what you have to really realize is that whenever Mrs. Sitaraman earns a rupee, it's going to be recorded under a plus. Here or here, under revenue or under capital, that will depend on the nature of the earnings. Similarly, whenever Mrs. Sitaraman spends a rupee, it is going to be recorded under a minus. Minus one nahi, under a minus. Again, here or here, it will depend on the nature of the spending. To fix matters with immediate effect, okay, the first thing that I can think of here, for example, is infrastructure, right? Now, whenever money is spent in terms of creating infrastructure, chahe wo roads ho, chahe wo ports ho, chahe kuch aur, it could be power, right? Usme bhi renewable, non-renewable, A, B, C, D, whatever, right? Now, why is this expenditure, why is the infrastructure spending being recorded under a capital account minus? Well, because it's creating assets for the country, isn't it? Right? So this is a capital account expenditure. Would one of you, I mean, just to make it a little bit interactive, could one of you care to tell me what do you think could be revenue account expenses, guys?
GST collection. GST collections.
Sorry, what collections?
GST collections.
GST collections. Okay. So, all right. 1 second. I cannot hear who spoke to me. Okay. So, who spoke to me? Was it you, Hemang?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Hemang, firstly, GST collections जो है ना, वो plus है कि minus है?
Ma'am, that will be a plus.
Correct. And then will you put it under revenue account or capital account?
Then we will be putting it under revenue account.
Absolutely right. So when it comes to earnings, the chief earning source that you will have here is tax revenue, under which you will obviously have GST, which is the biggest source of indirect taxes. And then you'll also have personal income tax. Okay. And you'll have corporate income tax. And then you will have the most debated and discussed tax currently in the Indian economic system. वो क्या है? Anyone?
Petrol and excise duty.
जी, बिल्कुल सही. So we will have the union excise, right, on motor spirit as it is called, or plain भाषा में कहा जाए तो petrol या फिर diesel. Correct? Okay, so these are the tax earnings, and you're damn right, it's a revenue earning. But Himang, I was asking you about revenue expenditure. So can anybody tell me what the revenue expenses is going to be like? Any items on that expense?
Ma'am, the salaries paid to the government employees.
Very nice, Rohit. Thank you. So let me put that in here, salaries. Very nice. So let me also club that with pensions. So salary, pensions, bahut zyada, tensions, everything goes in there. Yes. And what else goes in there?
Interest charged on the debt.
Debt? I'm sorry?
Interest.
Interest on the debt. Hey, Siddhant, that's great. And you know what? You've kind of given me the entry, I mean, the definitive entry that I was looking for, because I'm going to write interest here in block capital letters, because that is the make or break entry on the revenue account. Interest payments by themselves, believe it or not, make up 40% of the total revenue account expenditure. So it's like a defining entry. And इतना interest हम भर रहे हैं, इसका meaning obvious है, बहुत ज़्यादा indebted है हम, correct? बिना उसके तो interest payment की इसका सवाल ही नहीं आता है. But anyway, we'll go on to the debts in a bit. Okay, any other stuff, guys?
Ma'am, subsidy.
Subsidy.
Hey, thanks, Preeti. Yes, absolutely right. So you got subsidies here. Any other stuff that you can think of? Feel free to talk, guys. Okay, so the other two, the other two big ticket entries on revenue account expense side are not that obvious. Okay, so one of those entries is grants given to states. Okay, so जो हमारा जो fiscal federalism situation है now, you know, budgets actually hence cannot be explained that quickly, because constitutionally we have been defined as a federal structure. Okay, a structure where union and states both have been given jurisdiction over different lists and over concurrent lists at the same time. In fact, so, you know, under Schedule 7 of the Constitution of India, there are 3 lists. You must have heard of those: the union list, the state list, and concurrent list, right? Civics lesson standard 6, hai na?
Yes, sir.
And no kid in the world can figure out why the hell am I being taught this, right? This is why you're being taught it, right? So that you can understand budgets once you come to the IIMs. Okay, so what happens with this union list thingy, right? Now, the union list has some subjects in it, around 99 subjects or 97 subjects, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so ye subjects jo hai, these are subjects over which the central government has got jurisdiction, and hence, agar is par tax levy karna ho, to only and only the center can levy a tax on these things. There is also a state list. And, you've got a list of subjects on which the states have jurisdiction. So a lot of students ask me in a lot of these budget programs, ma'am, why don't we have an agriculture tax in the country? Come on, there are rich farmers, so why can't we have an agriculture tax? So before you ask me the question, let me give you the answer. We can't have an agriculture tax in the union budget. Why? Because agriculture is a state subject. The union does not have jurisdictive control over that subject. So tax levy karne ka to sawal hi nahi aata hai. ठीक है, so let me also go a little more bit deeper, guys. Please stay with me and listen to what I'm saying carefully. So earlier we had a situation where the central government has its own share, has its own jurisdiction over direct taxes such as income tax and personal income tax, corporate income tax and wealth tax. So usko jara hum baaju mein hatate hain. Let's go to the indirect taxes levied by the center. The chief amongst these used to be prior to 2017, one tax called as excise, which is basically a tax on production. Okay, production of goods. Okay. And then we had yet another tax, which was called as service tax, which was introduced by Mr. Chidambaram in, I believe, the 1997 budget, if I'm not mistaken. Wo check kar lijiye aap. So excise initially, to begin with, was not a vatable tax. मतलब उस पर ना हम वो input tax credit claim नहीं कर पाते थे. There was a lot of joljal with excise. Then over a period of time, it was modified into a VAT structure, and then it was made fully vatable, and so it is called as cent VAT or central VAT. ठीक है, तो cent VAT is the name of excise जो कि center के पास है. Service tax was always vatable. लेकिन problem ये होता था that the industry used to say, now think of an Infosys. Now, Infosys is a seller of software. Now, it says that, if I'm a seller of software, can I sell software if I don't buy hardware, for heaven's sake? So, you need to give me a seamless tax model wherein I can flit between output, which is service, and inputs, which are goods. So, we needed a very seamless tax structure between goods and services. And so, in July 2017, India moved herself onto the GST model. Correct. Now, GST mein 23 different taxes were subsumed. Some of these are central taxes and some of these are state level taxes. Now, it is not that easy under the constitutional structure of this country to take some taxes from union list, some taxes from state list, और चलो इसकी खिचड़ी पकाते हैं और उसको GST बोलते हैं. The constitution says, hold on, you need a constitutional amendment for the thing, don't you? That is why the GST had to be preceded by a constitutional amendment. Yet one more reason why it was the Modi Sarkar which could put the GST into place, even if this was actually a brainchild of the UPA. Coalition mein, you cannot get those many states to sign the dotted line, you see. Because constitutional amendment ke liye aapko majority chahiye. Okay, so there are wheels within wheels inside a budget. Okay, now having said that, let me also tell you that one of, when the states subsumed their sales tax within the GST, lot of states को already बहुत हड़बड़ी उड़ गई थी कि भाई पैसे नहीं मिले तो, I mean, earlier state level का sales tax was their major bread and butter, followed by VAT on petrol. So sales tax was subsumed into GST. But the state said, hold on, let us go through into this model. And then once we are a little sure about what is happening, then we can think about subsuming diesel and petrol also into the GST structure. Okay, and that is why today petrol and diesel are not under the GST. Okay, there is a separate central tax for petrol and diesel, and there is a separate state level tax on petrol and diesel. So coming back to our own calculations, when I say union excise on petrol and diesel, this is the union component, that is union government ने जो levy किया है, वही component हम यहाँ पर लिखेंगे. Okay, now somebody mentioned the GST, so I'm sure you also know that the GST gets automatically shared with the states, right? So there is a central GST component and there is a CGST as well as SGST. So all of these taxes which I'm putting down here are only the taxes which are privy, I mean the central government is privy to these taxes, right? It is their share after having given the states whatever they wanted to. So ये जो grants है,
Can I have a quick question?
Oh, sure. Please
So
go.
some of the items are having a IGST. How is it different?
Right. Okay. So, sir, for example, agar, let's say that I'm a service provider, I'm a consultant sitting in Maharashtra, okay? And I am giving a service to another firm in Maharashtra itself. So I am then subjected to an 18% GST, consultancy per 18% slab hai, okay? So what I do is when I raise an invoice, I do a 9% CGST, 9% SGST. मतलब automatically center को half मिल गया, state को half मिल गया, ठीक है? Now, however, if I sell this service to you in Ranchi, then when I raise the invoice on you, I will raise it at integrated GST 18% straight and simple. वो पूरा का पूरा center को जाता है, sir. So this is kind of कैसे कहूँ, earlier जो central sales tax होता था ना, sir, CST. उसका ये वेटेबल काउंटर पार्ट है. हाँ, that's one way of looking at it. ठीक है. Okay, so we go yet ahead into the budget. So there are grants to the states, which are also given under this entire fiscal federalism thingy, but okay. These are suggested by the Finance Commission, the 15th Finance and so on and so forth. There's also some operations and maintenance expenses, जैसे कि desilting of canals, जैसे कि रोड्स को ठीक ठाक करना, मेंटेनेंस करना, जो हमने मिसाइल्स या टैंक्स हम बाय कर चुके हैं उन पर जो मेंटेनेंस है वो. Now we come to the seriously interesting bit, which is capital earnings. Anybody who can tell me what capital earnings should be like?
Ma'am, the disinvestments of the public sector units.
Very nice. Thank you, Rohit. Absolutely right there. The disinvestment of the PSUs. So guys, if you take a look at the board again, you'll notice that when we create assets, no, it's a capital expenditure. And when the government creates a liability, okay, it's going to become a capital earnings. Okay. Similarly, when the government liquidates an asset, jaise ki Rohit is saying we are going to do a disinvestment. Rohit, do you remember the number on that?
No, ma'am, currently not aware of the number.
Okay, it's yellow, 0. I mean, that's okay. Let's not comment on that. So she has put in 1.75 lakh crores steep disinvestment target there. Okay, what that really means is the government will start selling its stake in PSUs, or it's also on the cards now. 2 banks will be privatized, right? So that is yet on the anvil. What else goes in as a capital account revenue?
Ma'am, borrowings that we do from IMF, World Bank, etc.
Is that Himang or was that Tarun?
Himang.
Talking about foreign banks.
Himang, so जो हम borrowings करते हैं, I mean, first part of your answer rocking, जो हम debt लेते हैं वो. Second part, I am going to ask you a question. So do you really think we borrow from the IMF and the World Bank only? I mean,
No,
why?
that's not true.
No,
Yes.
bolo, bolo. I'm very curious. You give me such a nice answer. Bolo, bolo.
No, ma'am, not just IMF, World Bank. We take private loans also from, say, corporates, and there are
Yeah.
other organizations we take
Hold
loans
on, hold
from.
hold on. Matlab, okay. So this is a government budget, huh? So you
Yes.
are telling me that the government takes a loan from corporate bodies?
Ma'am, the government bonds that are there
Mm-hmm.
for people to purchase that
Correct,
kind of thing.
correct. Okay, good. So, Himang, this is fine. And, you strengthen my belief in the Indian, kaise kahun, sanskar or culture or whatever, because, I've been teaching this public finance for so many years now. And for so many years, when I ask the question, Indian government किससे borrow करता है, झट से आंसर आता है मैम IMF से. अरे एक बार किया था 1991 में, गलती हो गई, फिर से नहीं होगी. But
Yes, ma'am.
kids seriously believe that we borrow from the IMF. So I'm so happy to hear that answer. Okay, so I'm going to set some things right. Okay, the second thing which you said also, Himang. Okay, you mentioned bonds, right? Bonds
ma'am.
are a way through which we borrow. ठीक है ना?
Yes,
Again,
ma'am.
that does not help us to handle the question from whom do we. I mean, these are two different questions. Bonds are the instrument. So you did say that, yeah, we've now allowed private people to individuals to also subscribe to bonds. Okay, so let's talk about all of this. Firstly, full points for giving the right answer. Let me put that down here. So that's loans and borrowing. ठीक है? Anybody who knows कितना? अरे उससे पहले मुझे ये पूछने दीजिए. अरे budget कितना है? How big is the budget? What is the shopping basket size of Mrs. Sitaraman? Size of the budget, guys, total expenditure, how much is it? Girls, may I ask any one of you, Ishani or maybe Swarna or maybe Ananya or any of the others?
Ma'am, it's 34 lakh crore almost.
34 lakh crore, that's absolutely right, Neeraj. A little bit more than that, actually. So, Mrs. Sitaraman she is really going shopping, isn't she? Huh? That's 34.83 lakh crore ka budget hai is bar. Okay, so it's a huge budget. That's the total expenditure. Where are we? Okay, so the total expenses, okay, is 34.83 lakh crores. ठीक है? इसमें से loans कितना है भाई? Okay, we'll go to that. So loans are taken by the government of India, correct, by issuing something called as bonds. That's the market borrowing program of the government of India. Apart from that, as Himang says, we do take some tiny loans, which is external debt from multilateral agencies, jaise ki World Bank or maybe from the Bank of Japan for putting up an infrastructure or a metro line here and there. Guys, we also do borrow from individuals, such as your parents, for example, right? So when I put my money into, let's say, postal savings, right, all of that hits a central pool, which is called as the NSSF. I'm not sure I remember the thing right. It's National Saving Something Fund. Okay, just take a look at it later on Google, right? NSSF में जो पैसा जाता है, that is basically a pool of all the individuals who are saving their hard-earned money into certain instruments on which we get a tax break, जैसे कि PPF है, जैसे कि postal savings है. Okay, so जो private individuals savings करते हैं, वो NSSF में जाता है, and from the NSSF the government of India takes a loan. याद रहे कि अगर NSSF में मैं पैसा डाल रही हूँ, मतलब I don't put my money in NSSF, I'm putting my money in postal office savings, या फिर into my PPF account. ठीक है? Now, in order to make sure that individual savers get a good deal, typically ये जो public provident funds वगैरह होता है, उस पर interest rate जरा ज्यादा होता है. For example, if SBI is giving me, let's say, a 5.5% interest rate on a 1-year FD, my PPF account is going to give me a much fatter interest rate. PPF will typically give me 7%. There's typical 1.5% differential होता ही है between PPF and what you're getting in your nationalized banks. ठीक है ना? तो ये गवर्नमेंट ने क्यों किया है? तो एक कैसे कहूँ, this has been done in order to make sure that the salaried middle income groups, old age वाले जो लोग हैं, उनको, हाँ, national small saving funds, thank you sir, so उनको अच्छा सा रिटर्न मिले, इसके लिए ये किया गया है. Now, if the NSSF is borrowing money from me at 7%, when it lends to the government, it is obviously going to lend at 8%. So let us already accept that whenever the government takes any loans or borrowings from the NSSF, ना उनकी धुलाई होती है. That is why, as far as possible, NSSF is to be avoided. And zyada se zyada market borrowing karti hai government by issuing those instruments which he spoke about some time ago, that's called as bonds. So you can either have treasury bills, which are shorter term bonds, or you can have G-Secs, government securities, which are longer term bonds. And bond market, maybe some other time if we can meet, we'll talk about bond markets, because that's yet another space altogether, you know. And abhi, if you notice, now there's a lot of halchal in the bond market, because this government is going to do a hell lot of borrowing this year on the bond markets, right? Okay, so I take you over to the budget final bit now. So now the government will borrow, well, let's say from NSSF, ya fir, you know, through the bond market. So I'm going to call that the market borrowings, which is managed by the Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Now,
Ma'am,
yeah, sorry, boliye.
ma'am, does the government also borrow from the RBI?
Oh yeah, absolutely it does. So when we say market borrowing, now one of the chief players in the market is the Reserve Bank of India, right? So the government borrows from two types of players. Okay, Shweta. One is the Reserve Bank, which is a central bank, and the other is all of the other financial institutions, the FIs. But what the Reserve Bank has done very wisely, and this is a typical structure across the globe. Okay, US में भी यही है, Taiwan में भी यही है, India में भी यही है. Typically, when the market borrowing happens, the government is never allowed to borrow directly from the financial institutions. You're not supposed to touch them at all. This entire borrowing happens through the RBI only. Why? Because otherwise, government की banks है भैया, ले लो पैसा और यहाँ पे खर्च कर दो. Who's going to ask you? So it moves against the basic norms of corporate governance. ना corporate governance tells you कि जो खर्चा करता है ना, उसके finance पर पहले आप control कीजिए, ताकि सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. करेक्ट. तो ये तो बड़ा खर्च करने वाले हैं ना, 34.83 लाख. तो ये तो फिर 50 लाख करोड़ ले लेंगे अपने अपनी बैंक से. तो ये अवॉइड करना है. सो यू हैव द सेंट्रल बैंक व्हिच कम्स इनटू द पिक्चर and says that, well, if you want to borrow from my banks, you will borrow through me. So it is the Reserve Bank of India which holds the auctions, which also manages the liquidity. कि ये ना हो कि सारा का सारा पैसा government को गया and the private sector is left hanging. You know, typically I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the famous crowding out effect, right? Which you must have studied in your Keynesian macroeconomics, right? So crowding out na ho, isliye somebody has to maneuver this whole structure. So, you know, I often feel that the Reserve Bank of India has a very thankless job there, you know, one of the most unenviable posts in the Indian economy, the central bank governor, right? Because it's a thankless job, one. Nobody likes you too. The government hates you and the bankers also hate you, correct? Because you are basically given an impossible objective. Okay, which brings us to objectives also. So let me take just 1 minute on this. Guys, budget जो होता है ना, वो बड़ा सरल सा instrument है. क्योंकि it is one instrument to carry out one objective, that is growth. लेकिन monetary policy जो होती है ना, जो कि central bank you know controls it, that's a very टेढ़ा-मेढ़ा instrument for the reason that the monetary policy is associated with two completely contrasting objectives. The first objective is आप growth create करो. Second objective is आप inflation होने ना दे. Now ये जो है ना, growth and inflation, they are best buddies, okay? जहाँ पे growth है ना, वहाँ पे inflation पीछे पीछे चला ही जाता है. Okay, so the central banker is given a superbly difficult, impossible task है ये, कि growth भी create करो और inflation भी ना होने पाए. So we go back here, and guys, of course, here you also have defense, and you also have stuff such as, oh my God, the most important this time around, health and education. Why all of this is in capital sector? Because this is human capital building. ठीक है? Good. अब ये जो loans हम लेंगे ना, this is a टेढ़ा-मेढ़ा proposal. Okay, so now listen to me sharp. Guys, I've laid down the budget in front of you, right? So we are going to be totally spending on which items now you can see very clearly. We're going to be spending, we matlab Bharat Sarkar, not Rajya Sarkar, only union government spends on interest, subsidies, salary, pensions, grants, operations, maintenance, expenditure, infrastructure, defense, health, education. I think we've covered the entire gamut, more or less. कितना खर्च करेंगे हम? Well, 34.83 lakh crore. ठीक है? Now, if you take into account the total earnings, then you might find that the total earnings are less than the expenditure. Okay, by let us say X amount. ठीक है? तो ये जो X amount है ना, उतने का हमें लोन लेना है. So please remember that every budget is a balanced budget. Well, it's of course it's balanced because we are going to take loans to the exact tune so that we'll end up balancing it. Okay. So guys, what you have on the board right now is a super balanced budget because I have taken loans in order to balance मेरा deficit जो है, मेरा खर्चा ज़्यादा है मेरे revenue से, so जो deficit आ रहा है उसको balance करने के लिए मैंने loans ले लिए. You are now staring at a perfectly balanced budget. Now what I'm going to do is, now suppose I go and I remove the loan side from this. Okay, अगर इसको इस चीज को मैं हटा दूं, so what happens if I just remove, if I slash off this particular entry, okay, then what will happen? Will my budget be in a surplus or a deficit?
Deficit, ma'am.
Absolutely correct. क्योंकि what am I doing? एक plus item को मैं निकाल रही हूँ, correct ना? So my budget immediately sways or tips into a deficit. Welcome to fiscal deficits. This is the exact meaning of the word fiscal deficit, and it's exactly equal to the total loans and borrowings taken by the government of India from all sources, जैसे कि NSSF, market borrowings, as well as multilateral institutions such as IMF, World Bank, ADB, blah, blah, blah. Correct? So what is the total fiscal deficit? The fiscal deficit is exactly equal to the borrowings done by the government of India. Now, ये जो fiscal deficits है, ये जो borrowings है, this year, it is to the tune of, well, the fiscal deficit is to the tune of 18 lakh crores, right? And that is 6.8% of the GDP. 6.8% of the GDP this year, I mean for 21-22, this is the projected fiscal deficit. Why do I say projected? अब आप फिर से एक बार इस budget को देखिए, and now perhaps you will understand why I was harping on the word proposal or plan in the beginning. Guys, expense जो है ना, जो कि subsidies कितनी देनी है, salaries, grants, infrastructure पे कितना खर्च करना है, all of this Mrs. Sitaraman can decide today upfront. She can declare in February 21 that starting from 1st April, इतना खर्चा ये petroleum ministry इतना करेगी, roads ministry इतना करेगी, and civil supplies इतना करेगी, agriculture इतना करेगी. लेकिन earnings का क्या? Earnings is just a projection, no? Correct. So this is the thing which can go seriously against you. For example, she has assumed that the government will land up, central government will end up getting something like 12 lakh crore ka tax revenue. Man lo, God forbid, but man lo the second wave or whatever is happening in Maharashtra right now persists. And the GDP growth rate is not as per the projection of the central government. And if we land up getting a tax revenue of only, let's say 10.5 lakh crore instead of the projected 12 lakh crore, वहाँ पे भी 1.5%, 1.5 lakh crore का deficit आ गया ना, घाटा आ गया आपका. Now, if you're looking at a total 200 lakh crore ka GDP, which is roughly the ballpark figure for GDP. So if I'm looking at 200 lakh crore, 1.5 lakh crore is what? It's 1.5% of GDP. Correct, no? So what it means is my fiscal deficit has been projected at 6.8, but God forbid, if the growth rate is not good and if the tax collection is not robust, then your actual fiscal deficit might go roaring like this, yeah? And then you'll be left with what, 8.3% fiscal deficit numbers? Bad news. Why is fiscal deficit such bad news? Well, because when you create loans, in the next year, you are also paying interest on the same loans. Correct? This year, okay, so I'm going to give you one last bit on, the whole thingy between interest and loans, and then I'll stop and we'll take questions and go ahead, as the questions come in. Okay, so I'm going to take you 2 days backwards into time, that is 2 days prior to the budget, when a very interesting document called as the Economic Survey of India was released. This comes in from the Office of the Chief Economic Advisor, right? And the Economic Survey of India basically has a very interesting chapter in which it says, does growth lead to debt sustainability? Yes. I mean, the advisor gives us the answer in the heading of the chapter itself. So that's the heading of the chapter. Does growth really lead to debt sustainability? And he says yes. Okay, now you see, Economic Survey of India really sets the ball rolling when it comes to the budget, because he's also part of the FM team, right? And this is hence ये विचार जो है ये सिर्फ चीफ इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर का नहीं बल्कि मिसेस सीतारामन का भी है कि only and only growth can lead to debt sustainability. So let us go across to the most abused equation in macroeconomics, which is GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M. I'm sure you've all seen this, this particular equation, right? You do, right? Can somebody please give me a heads up?
Yes, ma'am, we have seen this.
Cool. So now, in the last 1 year under COVID times, okay, we've had a situation where consumption expenditure has seriously taken a hit, right? And that is also coming in from the fact, one, that, during the lockdown, we were all forced to stay at home. So that is one bit where the consumption went down, but really more seriously, as the incomes have taken a hit, consumption expenditure has definitely taken a hit in absolute terms. Private sector investment for donkey's years has been taking a hit in India. Okay, so this is our Achilles heel, guys. ये हमारा, and उसकी भी बड़ी लंबी सी history है, अभी time नहीं है, so I won't go into that. Why does private sector investment not really rev up very quickly in India? Okay, but this has been traditionally a problem area. What does John Maynard Keynes tell you? He tells you that, well, if C and I are not working, what the hell is this component doing? So let the government spending go up and you'll be able to drive up the GDP. That is exactly what the economic survey has. That is exactly the angle which the ESI takes. And the Economic Survey of India tells us that if the government spends well, and if the government spends not only well, but it spends more on infrastructure, okay, then over a period of time, we will be able to collect more taxes, which will be able to take care of the debt which the government is going to create because it's spending a lot of money. Okay, so in this budget, we are at a historically high fiscal deficit. The FRBM Act of the country stipulates that the total fiscal deficit of India should be no more than 3% of GDP. For the year 2021, that is the COVID year, we've landed ourselves up with a 9.5% fiscal deficit number. Guys, 9.5%. And what is that? Remember please, ये जो 9.5% का loan अभी ले रहे हैं ना हम, उसका अगले साल हमें interest भी भरना है. Okay, so understand that first. Secondly is next year also, if we do 6.8% of GDP, which is the plan, we are going to do, we are going to put humongous pressure on interest as we go ahead, right? However, if we spend this money wisely, yes, that means if we focus more on capital spending rather than on revenue account spending, then hopefully this will take care of this in the longish run. So what the FM has done is she says that I know that, okay, so this is your across time, this is your 3% FRBM target, and we were moving in nicely around here at about 3.3%. When COVID hit us, we are up at 9.5. This year we are going to do 6.8. Yeah, and she says that just because we are going to do that kind of borrowing, na, automatically next year हमारा interest payment बड़ा होगा, deficit भी बड़ा ही होगा. So you see, this is a situation where today's deficit causes tomorrow to tip into a deficit, a debt trap. Correct? That आज आप जितना ज़्यादा loans लोगे ना, कल उतना ही आपको interest भर के फिर से deficit में जाने की बात है, basically. Right? So she says that once we are doing 9.5 and 6.8, it's not a merry ride. So she has said that it's only by 25, 26 that India will be able to bring this path down to 4.5% of GDP. 4.5%. 3% to hai hi nahi. And the other thing which she has said is that she's going to now also revamp the FRBM targets, because she says that under, these are extraordinary circumstances and it's very, very difficult to, really look at the 3% target now. Right? So these are the final few numbers for you guys. The total budget size stands at 34.83 lakh crores. Right? Of this, the deficit, that is the fiscal deficit, stands at 18 lakh crores, 18.0 something, 09 or something like that. Okay, but I'm very, very glad to tell you that of the total expenditure which has been planned, okay, 16% of the expenditure is on the capital account, which is a new high. ट्रेडिशनली इंडिया में 11% तक ही जाने के लिए हम बहुत रोते हैं. So 11% of the total expenditure typically capital पर होता है. This year I find that a huge jump has happened in capital expenses, and this is one of the reasons why I liked this year's budget. And 84% only is being spent on revenue. Those of you who are seeing this for the first time may say, "Kya, ma'am, 84% only आप कैसे कह सकते हो?" I can say this because normally हम 90% spend करते हैं revenue account पर. So this is very, very good news for me that 16% is being spent on the capital account. Now, the other thing is, the 1.75 lakh crore disinvestment which she will do. So, I got some questions ahead of this event from Siddhant, and some people were saying, so does this mean that we're becoming capitalistic or something like that? So let me just give you a quick comment on that, and then I'll stop. Guys, if you heard the words, if you heard the budget this year, you'll notice that the word disinvestment was not really spoken about. What was spoken about really was strategic sales or privatization. Okay, so isme jo story hai, that means, does it mean that we're not going to disinvest? Of course we are going to. So what's the big difference? I think the difference is in the mindset. Okay, for many years, I mean, it was with Manmohan Singh ji's budgets when he was the FM in 1992 that disinvestment became a big source of revenue for the government. But I think today we are not really looking at disinvestment as a revenue source, but we are looking at it as a culture change. And I think that is what is very encouraging to me when I read the budget, right? So it is a revenue source, yes, it is. But अब आप देखो पिछले कितने सालों से हम disinvest कर रहे हैं. No, just because we have disinvested, have the public sector bodies become profit making? So the whole point of disinvestment is also to get new blood into the companies to make these companies perform like private sector entities. Okay, and that has clearly not happened despite a huge disinvestment program undertaken so far. Correct. So I think that the word we need to, we need to stop looking at disinvestment as a major revenue source, just which helps us to balance the budget, and look at it as something which can help the PSUs to perhaps, hopefully, better their performance as we go ahead. Right? And you already hear this language through the budget because she's been talking about strategic sales and she's been talking about asset monetization of a lot of brownfield projects. These are some of the encouraging things that we've heard during the budget. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I've taken a lot of time. Thank you very much for such a patient hearing. And it's over to your faculty members as well as to Siddhant.